Everyone has at least touched a board game or some other sort of physical embodiment of a friendship demolisher. Some games from the boards became computer games, and sometimes vice versa. However, there is one game I've seen that no one believed could become a physical game, but in 2020, it became a reality. The World of Tanks miniature game is made of miniatures of 20 vehicles, 4 of which you can get with the original box, and a bunch of cards and cardboard things. Oh, and who could forget the RNG system? To set up the game, players take turns rolling dice to determine who gets a tactical advantage. Whoever rolls more World of Tanks symbols on the dice wins the advantage for the setup round and puts down a piece of terrain. Then the other side does the same and they alternate until the battlefield has been set up. Small side note about terrain. Houses are totally solid and block vehicle movement. They also provide cover from enemy fire. Hills and forests do the same depending on how much of the vehicle is exposed. Walls are destroyable obstacles that you can drive through or shoot to destroy. You can traverse through hills, forests, or walls with no penalty, but a destroyed wall is removed from the battlefield. After setting up terrain, the players roll again to see who chooses to be attacker or defender. Attacker gets advantage immediately for the battle while the defender gets to select which side of the board they can start on. The final major part to worry about in terms of setting up something extra is crew skills or equipment to enhance your vehicle. If you've selected a vehicle, you should have taken an associated tank card that has everything on it: an initiative, mobility, firepower, and survivability stat, crew members, and hit points along with the type of vehicle and its cost. The box also has 2 sets of cards, one for critical hits or damaging shots and the others are equipment and crew cards. Set the damage cards to the side. With the equipment cards, there is a cost associated with them to add to the tank. Collectively set a max cost for equipping and then select a series of cards: a module card, crew card per position, 3 consumable cards, 3 ammo cards, and 3 equipment cards. You could pick cards of any nation unless you want to be a bit historical. Then you may pick cards only matching the nationality of your vehicle. Once both players have finally done everything in this unnecessarily dragged on segment, they then deploy their tanks depending on the initiative number on the associated tank card from the box. The lowest tanks in initiative get deployed first. If there is a draw in initiative, the non-advantaged player deploys their tank first. This is where you bring out the ultimate unit in this game, the cardboard arrow. Just know that both movement and attack phases will be dependent on this. You can move as many times as your mobility stat allows you, putting the arrow down, moving your tank up as long as it stays flat against the arrow, and then moving it up again. The more you move, the less accurate your shots become though. Whenever you move, you put down a little marker to show how many times you moved. If you don't wanna move, but instead evade shots, you can simply stack up movement tokens for later. Remember that the terrain side note mentioned earlier applies to this phase and the attack phase. Speaking of attack phase, we've finally come to the part of the tank that likely defines an armored vehicle: its gun. The first thing to determine is whether or not the gun is mounted in a turret. If it doesn't have a turret gun, then the tank has an assault gun. In this game, assault guns can only shoot targets that are either completely in the forward 180 degrees of your vehicle or partly in front of your vehicle directly. Another thing to determine is line of fire. To determine this, one has to trace at least 3 lines from different corners of the target vehicle to the center of their tank. If any 1 or 2 lines connect to your vehicle without hitting a hard obstruction, then you have a line of sight, but the enemy is in cover. 3 or more lines mean the enemy is not in cover, and so no defensive bonuses can be applied. For the attack phase, you do exactly what you've been doing for the entire setup round. Praying to RNGesus that the board game doesn't end up as atrocious as the actual PC game and rolling some dice. For the attacker and defender of the assault, firepower stat determines how much attack dice you roll while the defender uses a survivability stat. However, as I mentioned previously, cover or the target's shooter's movement can increase the pool of defense dice rolled. Alternatively, close range shots less than an arrow's length in distance or flanking shots on the rear of the target subtracts 1 defense die. In total, the defender should have an absolute maximum of 6 defense dice in a roll. You then cancel out dice rolls like that 1 board game risk and factor in the remaining uncancelled rolls for either side. Critical hits are the World of Tanks symbols on the dice. Uncancelled critical hits give the unfortunate chap the absolute pleasure of drawing a critical hit card and seeing how devastating the resulting effects are. Or if you're decently lucky, you just have to deduct the amount of normal hits from your tank's HP pool. There's also a weird command phase that really doesn't do much. You just do what I just said, assess the survivability of your tanks, well, and then go right back into moving. And thus, you now have a basic, if not scuffed, idea of how this board game works. So go out there and touch some grass for a change or order it off of Amazon, or something.